and hello, and I just want to say hello to everybody, hello to my crew, hello to the audience watching back home, and I want to say welcome back to another episode of Constellation Crew. I miss this. I always do miss this. I don't know why I keep opening with that, but this is just one of the most fun things I do on campus. But let's push away from Constellation Crew and just check in with the crew themselves. How was your break, guys? We split off for winter break. What did y'all do? What did y'all get for Christmas?
It was great. Definitely needed a break. Yeah, I got to go visit like my grandparents up north in Michigan. What else did I do? Just like hung out with friends from home. And yeah, it was just really nice, a nice little refresher.
Okay. What about you, Maya?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I just took a huge brain break and ate a lot of food. I didn't do too much, so
That's totally valid. This break has honestly just been interesting, but more importantly, it's just been a nice step away. A nice step away. But as we move on to the new year, new you sometimes depends on what your priorities are, and hopefully a good year. 2023 was honestly, I didn't hate it. It was a fine year. It's most definitely been an upward trend, especially starting all the way back off from COVID, especially starting school off. So it's been a nice, steady, progressive trend, and I'm ready for the new year, see what it holds. But probably one of the saddest thing about this year comes with I will be graduating, and this will be my last semester being with Constellation Crew. I know I haven't been here for the absolute longest, but it's still been a good ride. But we don't gotta worry about that yet. That's months down along the line. But I did want to ask, did any of you guys use any of the things that we talked about last episode or the previous episode over the break? No.
over
No.
Break, maybe before break,
Over
Yeah, kind of.
Christmas. Oh, you go, Maya.
I just kind of been taking a brain break, but I definitely like get on and look at all the stuff we talked about because it's super interesting stuff.
No, over Christmas where I was at, it was just really hazy, and so you could not see anything in the sky. And then I just kind of forgot about it after Christmas. My
Yeah.
mom said that shout out to my mom, she said that she went out to go look over Christmas, but of course we were in the same area, so she didn't see much in the sky, unfortunately.
It
Yeah,
sucks.
the weather kind of prevents me from doing quite a bit outside.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the cold.
It just sucks. Like, I've been keeping tabs. We really haven't had too many clear skies since like the beginning of December. But even still, I was able to check out the meteor shower that we talked about last episode. It was honestly purely by chance. I was walking back from the atrium here on campus, hanging out with a friend, and I just happened to look up, and a meteor just flashed really quickly, and I was like, "Oh man, I should have been staring at the sky longer." But yeah, no, it was great. It was great, especially since this was probably one of the more, not the first time I've seen a meteor, but one of the first times I've seen a meteor in person instead of like over an animation or a cartoon. It was really nice to see. If I wasn't in a rush, I probably would have stood out there for just a tad bit longer to see if I could catch a few more. But like I mentioned, it's a new year, and not only are new events going to be happening for all of us in the crew or you guys at home, but there's going to be new events happening in our very own sky. And with that, I wanted to mention that there is an upcoming total solar eclipse for all of you guys who are watching in Muncie. We had like a little round of applause, a little wave of excitement. It's hopefully I don't want to say this too early and ruin all of our chances, but I really hope the weather's good. I have been waiting for the solar eclipse for a while now. It was interesting because I was in the path for the 2017 eclipse, but it was cloudy. where I was, so I wasn't able to see it, but I was able to see the sky actually get dark. But I'm still upset about that one. But I might get a redemption chance. Here's praying out for April. But if you do want to learn more about solar eclipses, we actually have a website from Ball State. If you go to www.bsu.edu/solar eclipse 2024, you can head over there to get more information about the eclipse and the upcoming eclipse event. But with all that said, does anyone have something they want to mention before we get on with the actual meat of the show? So
I'm good. I'm ready.
All right. So this show is going to be a bit of an interesting one. We will talk about a wide variety of topics, and we'll actually start it off with a bit of astrology. And so our full moon that is tonight is happening, and it is called a number of different things depending on where you are in the world. But one more common word that we may know around here in the US is actually the wolf moon. And the reason this full moon was given the wolf moon is because the villagers would be in their houses and it would be nighttime, and they would hear all these wolves howling outside during those winter nights. And you always see those good old cartoons showing the wolf howling at the moon, which unfortunately is a myth, but there is still a bit of truth, as all myths do start off with, originate, to where this came from. And the big thing is that wolves are winter animals. They do a lot of things during the winter and hunt, and so they use howling to call the pack or have social events. And because they are winter animals, they howl more. They will be howling more. They will be more active during these winter nights. And because January is smack dab in the middle of winter, we got a whole bunch of howling at night, and villagers decided to call the full moon for January the wolf moon. But there are still a number of January moon names that aren't just a wolf moon, such as the snow moon, worm moon, pink moon, a whole bunch of moon names that really have some sort of myth or historical reasoning tied to it. But with that said, we can talk just a bit more about astrology in general and the difference between astronomy and astrology, and we'll sort of tie that back in at the more latter end of the show. So with that said, does anybody have any cool things that they want to talk about astrology, or what they know, or just the genuine difference?
Yeah, I kind of wanted just to touch on the difference a little bit. The names sound similar, so a lot of people get them mixed up. But astronomy it's basically the study of everything outside of Earth's atmosphere, while astrology it's more of a practice. It's where you use the position of celestial objects and such to predict human behavior. And I always like to remember astrology comes from astronomy and not really the other way around. So
It's really funny how a lot of mix up can happen between the two. I want to say the funniest story that I've ever had was back when I want to say a senior or a junior in high school, and me, my mom, and my aunt were doing college visits, and my aunt was sitting and just trying to listen, and she didn't get the information that she wanted to hear, and she just straight up said, "So what programs do you have available for astrology aspiring astrologists?" And me and my mom just looked at her, and she was like, "Ooh, I mean astronomy." It was funny. It was funny. But it's just that genuine misconception, and essentially because astrology and astronomy are so closely tied, coming from the fact that astrology is the use and study of stars and applying that to the behavior of people, and astrology just really comes from astronomy, and so there's that really strong tie, and a lot of people can switch it up and mix it up. But don't be too confused. Make sure you remember that astrology is a practice and astronomy is the science. But even still, even though I am more focused in astronomy, astrology is still something that I find fun to just read into every now and then. It's always been a interesting, not hobby, but more of a study topic, if you will.
Oh yeah, I love judging people by their zodiac signs. Not really judging, that sounds kind of harsh, but more like sounds kind of
Analyzing,
mean, but it's just like it is rather interesting how it's because part of me is like, how can like stars in the sky really like dictate behavior and like characteristics of people? But it is interesting how much they sometimes align up. I don't know if it's me being delusional or what, but
No, I totally get you. I always just
it's
find
so
it.
interesting.
I find it hilarious because um I will talk about mine in a second. Spoiler alert for the latter end of the show and why we're really talking about astrology now. But I was just looking over my sign, and of course, not everything was right. It's still a practice. It's not perfect. Um, but there was still a good number of things that was right, and I'm just sitting here like, huh? It's always funny. It really is. But as we shy away from astrology for now, let's talk about really cool and interesting things that are happening in astronomy. And there's one really awesome thing that has just been going around for, I want to say, it started back in 2017, 2018. A really cool project that actually comes from our very own NASA. So, who wants to talk about it?
I'll talk about it a little bit. So this thing that Kyree is mentioning is the NASA's Space Launch System. So this system is basically an extremely heavy lift rocket that allows humans to explore things outside of Earth's orbit. Now, this is the only rocket that can send the Orion spacecraft, 4 astronauts, and cargo directly to the moon in a single mission. It's the most powerful built by NASA thus far, and it can send more than 59,000 pounds of cargo to the moon. So that sounds pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, it's honestly just a really powerful rocket. Could you guys just imagine carrying, 59,000 pounds? And, if there
Nope,
was a magical
not
path in the sky, walk over to the moon with all.
doing it.
It's crazy how much engineering and science just evolves over the years. It shows that science is really a collaborative effort, and you can come out with really amazing results if you keep on pushing towards it. But
Mhm.
what happened with our latest launch?
Yeah, so the latest launch occurred as part of the Artemis 1 mission on November 16th, 2022. It was an uncrewed lunar flight test, so nobody was on it. And it occurred for 25 days, 10 hours, and 53 minutes. And it was kind of a test launch to prepare for future missions that will happen, including one that will put the first woman and the first person of color on the moon. Big shout out.
Yes,
And yeah,
so exciting.
yeah, that's like crazy. Like first.
Yeah,
I
no.
know, I didn't know. I was like, I was looking, making sure that was right. I was like, I didn't know that a woman hadn't been up there yet.
No, like that's just insane. But we do have a launch coming up in a year and a half ish, a little more than that. In September of 2025 is the next launch date. The mission will be about 8 to 10 days, and it will collect data on the Orion module and its life support systems. It was originally scheduled to happen in November of 2024, but got delayed for safety purposes. So good thing they delayed it. Um, but yeah, I can't wait for that. That's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
I'm honestly excited for it. It's just really great to see basically a whole bunch of people coming together, do science, and give opportunity to people who just genuinely haven't. The good old history of the world and just how minorities, whether that be women or people of color, just having more or lesser opportunities. And it's now really great to see that we're starting to more come together and give opportunities and let different people have different experiences and spearhead the start of something great and something awesome in the world. And that's just honestly one of the beauties of science isn't what's the word that I'm trying to say, not restrictive, but exclusive. Anyone who is willing to learn, to put in the effort, and has the drive, can go far. But with all of that said, it's important to still understand why we care so much, and like we mentioned, it's bringing a lot of opportunities to various people. But also, one of the more awesome things about it is just, again, the capacity it's able to hold. It's awesome. Being able to carry these large and heavy payloads allows for the SLS to do a wide variety of mission objectives, and it would completely reduce the complexity of these missions, and it's sort of focus on a bit of reusability to go on for further missions. It's just awesome. It's great to see how far we've come in the field of astronomy, in the field of science, in the field of engineering, and just seeing what everyone's hard work and effort has brought to fruition. But yeah, does anyone else have anything else they'd like to say or mention about the space launch system?
Just exciting.
Yeah, it really is. It genuinely is. Whew. Well, with that said, I think everyone's been finally waiting for the meat of the show, the good old reason that the show was named the show, Constellation Crew. So with that said, let's talk about our January night sky, what you hopefully might see in Muncie, depending on the weather. It's not looking great, but
yeah, the weather's been really bad.
Yeah,
it's like it's a combination of the cold, which sucks, but like also the combination of I can't look up in the sky because there's so many walks where I just play music, look up in the sky, and like just look at stars. And just not being able to do that is like weird because I gotta look at the ground like a normal person, or forward like a normal person. But with all that said, who wants to take it away?
I will. I'm going to talk about Pegasus, a constellation hopefully all of you know or familiar with. It's a big old horse in the sky. So Pegasus is the 7th largest constellation in the sky, so it's pretty hard to miss. The easiest way to find it is just looking for the Great Square. But to help you out a bit more, up here in the northern hemisphere during the winter time, it's going to be towards the west horizon. So that'll really help you look for it. But the prime time for seeing Pegasus is going to be in fall, especially around October. It's going to be just right up and then towards the east. And yeah, and there's some pretty cool objects that are right by Pegasus as well. So we have the M15 globular cluster, which is also known as the Great Pegasus Cluster. It's right now it's going to be northwest of Enif, which is the mouth of Pegasus and the brightest star in Pegasus. And so it's about 12 billion years old, which is very, very old. Oh, and there it is. And it is very dense since it's a globular cluster. It's just all of these stars and whatnot, all tightly packed in from our view. There's also a planetary nebula in the cluster. It's called Peas 1, and it was the first planetary nebula ever found in globular clusters, which is pretty cool. It is also believed to be home to a intermediate mass black hole, which is estimated to be 4,000 times the mass of our sun, which is crazy. And you can see it with binoculars and even small telescopes. It's just gonna look like a little fuzzy ball. But if you have like a higher grade telescope, you will be able to see it a little bit more clearly. But yeah, very accessible to see out in the sky if your sky is clear and you got some binocs or a telescope. Another cool thing is also Stephan's Quintet. So it's a group of 4 galaxies. There's 3 elliptical and 1 spiral galaxy, and they're in very close proximity to each other. So they range from 280 to 311 million light years away, which is insane how far away they are. So they're all relatively close together, and eventually they'll just kind of form all into one big elliptical galaxy. There's two that have already started the process. They're kind of meshing in towards one another. Um, Also, one of the galaxies in there, 7319, that one contains a supermassive black hole that has a mass that is 24 million times larger than our sun, which is even more insane. That makes the little 4,000 from earlier sound pathetic. But yeah, if you look at pictures of Stephen's quintet, you might notice that it looks like there's 5 of them, because there is a galaxy, another spiral galaxy, that kind of looks like it should be a part of it, but is actually much, much closer to us than it is to the other 4. And it also has kind of like a different color hue going on as well. So that's another way you can tell it's not a part of the quintet. Well, that's about all I got about Miss Pegasus.
Yeah, that's honestly really cool to talk about. But I still have one aching question from this good old conversation. What are the 2 types of star clusters? You mentioned one, globular, but what's the other? Any of the
Globular, and then open is the other one.
Nice. And then what is that real main difference between the 2? Why is there 2 different types? What makes them so different?
Yeah. So the globular clusters are just a big cluster of stars, as I had mentioned. They're all tightly bound together because of their gravity. And they consist of older stars and have tens of thousands to even millions of stars, which is, space is just so big, it just blows my mind every time I talk about it on this show. Like, I can't even fathom that number. And then open clusters are cluster of stars that are loosely bound. They're not all tightly raveled up. And those clusters typically have younger stars, and generally only about a few hundred. So they're not as, massive and that looking as you can see on the screen.
No, it's cool what space has. Just the 2 different types of clusters, and just that real main difference about how many stars are just in them in general, like tens of thousands to millions. That's a lot. You can't count to tens of thousands or millions on your hands, and you also really can't count to thousands or hundreds for that matter, which also makes open clusters more interesting, but it just doesn't have as many. And then you really do have those newer stars. But thank you so much, Jessica, for really talking and explaining about the difference between globular and open clusters.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And here we are back at Pegasus, but we aren't done with our show. We still have a couple more things that we want to talk about. And with that said, Maya, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the Andromeda constellation a little bit. It's a good thing Jessica is giving us great information about Pegasus, because we can actually use that constellation to find the Andromeda constellation. So if you can find the Great Square of Pegasus within the Pegasus constellation, if you look directly above it, you'll see the star called Alpharet. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then that's a part of the Andromeda galaxy, so it's right there, it's really easy. And there's also another way to find it. And this next way, you can also find the Andromeda galaxy, which is right next to it. So you'll want to look northward for the M or W shaped constellation, and that's Cassiopeia, the Queen constellation. And then next you'll want to look for a star called Skyder. It's the brightest star in the constellation, and it's the second from the top. And then once you find that, you'll want to look directly to the right of it, and you'll find Alpheratz, which is the same star that we found using Pegasus. And yeah, that's how you find Andromeda. And then the Andromeda galaxy is right next to it, and that's actually one of the interesting objects I want to talk a little bit about. So it is the brightest and the largest galaxy visible from Earth. And I think it's really interesting and cool to look at. We find it. Yeah, there it is. So I think it's cool that that's visible from Earth. Like you can look up and actually, I mean, you won't see that, but the fact you can still see it is really interesting to me.
It's honestly one of the best things that I enjoy about the night sky is just when you look up and you see all these bright lights. Some of those lights just may not even be stars. You can see
Right.
planets in our solar system from Earth. You can see Orion's Nebula, which is in Orion's belt, and it's just so cool to see all these different objects in space that you can see with your own eyes without needing the aid of a telescope or binoculars. It's interesting how strong the human eye can be and how weak it can also be. It's a sort of give and take. But with that all said, I would like to talk about a bit of astrology, and with what we were talking about and how astrology can sort of tell what a person might be, not always perfect. My own zodiac sign, for those of you who may have tuned in on previous shows might remember, is that my sign is Cancer. The crab, good old crab. It's always funny when I look at like different readings about Cancer and just seeing how much stuff is relatable to me and how much isn't. It's always so fun to think about. But with that said, I'm going to talk a bit about how you can find it. And personally, one of my fun ways of finding it is by using Orion, the very easily findable constellation in the night sky. So here in Muncie, Orion will be more towards the southeast east region. It will be rising. Right now we are looking at about 8 p.m. So as we can see, Orion here it's a bit closer to the horizon, just about rising. And one of the easiest things you can find when locating Orion is his belt. These three lights in a line, and then by using the Orion's belt, you can actually form a check mark with Orion's brightest star, Betelgeuse. And with that, we can now take the ends of this check mark using Orion's belt and Betelgeuse. So Betelgeuse here, and this other star called Mintaka, and you can sort of form a line from Mintaka to Betelgeuse and extend from Betelgeuse, and you'll find yourself in the constellation of Gemini. If you can see it, you'll probably find yourself at Tajat or Mepsuda. Wonderful. And for those of you who are aware of astrology, you would know that the time for Cancer comes right after Gemini. So Cancer will typically be following right behind Gemini in the night sky. A bit harder to see, but it's there. It's there. You can just believe. I know you can. But with that said, again, Cancer is the crab constellation, and you can easily find it using Gemini and Orion. And one interesting thing inside of the crab, as I try to pull it up now, is M44, otherwise known as the Beehive Cluster. And as we were talking about earlier, there are two different types of clusters: globular clusters, which are tens of thousands to millions of stars, and open clusters can range from a few hundred. And the Beehive Cluster itself is a open cluster, and one of the cooler things about it is the fact that it's really not that far away in terms of other clusters. It's 182 parsecs away, or 3 quadrillion miles, which is still really far, but it's still a lot more cluster when we compare it to all the other clusters that are out there in the night sky. And another interesting thing about the Beehive Cluster is that it is a bit more on the higher end for the amount of stars that are within it. It contains relatively low thousands, but still, when you typically think about these open clusters and how they typically only contain like a few hundred, to realize that this star has about a few thousand stars is really cool. And honestly, one of the more interesting things about it. And of course, I love it because it's in the Crab constellation. Who doesn't love it? Who doesn't love it? It's a Cancer. Who doesn't love the good old crab? You know, you got his legs pointing out here, and then of course you have your pincers. Still another one of the weirder constellations where you just have lines all sticking together, but if you really use that imagination, you can see the crab. But with that said, I think all of the crew has really talked about the constellations that they really wanted to talk about in our good old show. Does anybody else have any closing remarks or fun things to mention about our night sky or what to look out for?
Don't
I think we
so.
said quite a bit, you know.
Yep, we did. You, my crew, as always, just amazing job. I'm honestly really happy to have such a great crew. But with that said, we still are a part of Ball State University and the Charles Brown Planetarium. So if you are in the Muncie area, please make sure to come on over and give us a check out. We have shows tomorrow and Friday and Saturday where we will do the Universe Overhead, which is our main kicker. The show that we'll be showing on Friday and Saturday, but we also have a couple others for the longer Saturday shows. One World, One Sky, one of my favorite ones, all about Big Bird. One of my crew finds it underrated, and and we are astronomers. Did I say underrated? I meant overrated. And we are astronomers. So please make sure to really come on over and check us out. I love the planetarium. I've worked here for a while now, and it's honestly a great time. And I know that you'll enjoy yourselves. If you have kids, the kids will enjoy yourselves. We'll have fun activities for all the kids to try out and for you guys to try out as well. And with all that said, any final words from my crew? Well, as always, please keep looking up at the sky, learn more about the world around us, even though it's all cloudy and you can't see much. And with all that said, I will see you here next time, same place, not so same time, and have a good day.